or your old school flip Bible, turn the page. And I want you to turn to Luke chapter 22. Let me get there right now so I can read this with you. In this particular chapter, he's basically giving his eulogy. And it's the Passover, and Christ is in the upper room with the dirty dozen, and they're giving thanks. He's actually trying to prepare them for his soon-to-be crucifixion. He's trying to get them ready because even though he's been with them for 3 years and he's been trying to prepare them for it, you know, when you know it's coming and then it actually happens, that's a different kind of story. So he's trying to get them ready to let them know that, hey, the time of my departure is at hand. And he's in the upper room with these guys. I'm looking for a specific verse. They're up in there, and it's interesting how people are in general. Christ is giving his eulogy. He's trying to get them ready, and these brothers start arguing about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. It's like they didn't even hear anything he had to say. And then Peter's saying, well, God, you know, I would never leave you. I want to know what's going on. You know, I got your back. And then he really messes them up because he says, and they all sitting at the table, he says, actually, one of you guys is going to betray me. And if you can imagine the look on their faces, because they've been with him for 3 years. And so they start looking at each other like, okay, is it you or is it you? Because he said that one of us is going to betray him. I wonder which one of us it's going to be. And after that happens, he turns to Peter in verse 31. So look at Luke chapter 22, verse 31. And he's speaking specifically to Peter. He says, and the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. And then verse 32, but I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. In verse 31, Christ, in order to get his attention, he calls them out. When I was little, and I'd be playing outside, you know how kids get when they're playing, time just passes by, they're not paying attention to the time. And when my mother wanted me to come in the house, she would stick her head out the door and she would holler my name. She would call me Deborah. Nobody really calls me that, but my mom calls me Deborah. But when you're a kid, you're so consumed by the playtime, you don't want to stop. So I would keep on playing. I'm like, I hear her, but I'm just going to ignore her. She don't really need me in the house. And then she would call me again. And I would ignore her, and I keep playing double dutch or whatever I was doing. But when she really wanted to get my attention, she would call me by my government name. She would call me Deborah. Nobody calls me that. So when my mother would shout that, then I would have to stop because I realized she was serious. And in verse 31, Christ does the same thing. He calls Peter by his government name. He says Simon. And he doesn't just call him Simon once, but he calls it twice because he wants him to know, look, what I'm about to tell you is important. So I need you to really listen to what I'm saying. He says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. There's a reason that we deal with the struggles in our life. There's a reason that we suffer in life. There's a reason that things happen within our lives. First of all, it's because God allows it. God is always in control. Everything that happens within our life, don't be mistaken and think that God doesn't know about it. But he says it could be that Satan hath desired to have you. When you think about all the things that you are experiencing in life, with life's stuff, your pain and your hurt and your abuse and your whatever it is that is hindering you and whatever it is that you are struggling with, it could be that Satan has gone to God and requested to sift you as wheat. It could be that Satan has entered the presence of God, because remember, it's amazing because God is omnipresent. God is everywhere at the same time. God is all powerful. He's omnipotent. Satan has power, but he doesn't have God power. So even before Satan, even before he steps to you, you have a shout, because he first of all has to get permission from God. You remember when Job, in Job chapter 1, when Satan approaches the throne of God, he has to get permission from God before he ever encounters Job. So it's the same way with you. Satan may have desired to sift you as wheat, but you don't have to worry about it because God already knows about it. And God has already given you what you need, so that when you meet it and it meets you, you already have this power inside of you that will help you to do what it is that you need to do when it comes to dealing with the attack. It says he has desired to have you. He's put a bullseye on your life. You are his target. Well, what is it that Satan wants to do? That he may sift you as wheat. I was looking at this sifting process and what farmers used to do when they would sift the wheat. The way they used to roll back in ancient Jewish times is completely different from how they do it now. They didn't have all these machines and these fancy things, but the farmer would, first of all, he would go out into the field and he would gather up all the wheat. And then he would bring the wheat back to the storehouse. And the first thing he did with the wheat is he would throw it on the ground. So Satan wants to take your life, snatch you from an environment where you're comfortable, where you feel safe with the other wheat. And then he takes you and he throws you down. He doesn't just lay you down gently, but he takes your life and he throws you on the ground. That's the first thing that he does to you. Maybe you were just going through life whistling Dixie, and then something happened that just shook you to the very core. Something unexpected. Maybe it was a passing of a loved one, or you got a pink slip at work, or you were just fired, or maybe Junior ended up in jail last night. He takes your life that he has requested permission from God. He snatches you up, and then he throws you down. But because of who's in you, because you belong to God and God belongs to you, you have this power that resides inside of you, and you don't stay down on the ground, but God gives you the strength to get back up again. But then he's not done with you. Because after he's thrown you on the ground, then he gets his henchmen, his demons, those folk that are following his lead, even those church folk that have forgotten who they are because of who they serve, and they're all hooked up with the demons and Satan, and they're being led in the wrong direction. He takes his workers and they start stomping on the wheat that's been thrown on the ground. So Satan has taken you. He's thrown you on the ground. And then if that's not enough, he starts to stomp on your life. Okay, so you got laid off. But now you realize that you have more month than money. It's because Satan is stomping on your life. He wants to try to break you down so that you will doubt God, that you will leave God, and that you will cause other people to leave him as well. But because of who's within you, because of the power of God that resides inside of you, you don't stay down. But you have the strength to get back up again. And then the next thing that he does, he throws you on the ground, stomping on you. But then they had this wooden stick, and they would beat the wheat that's already been thrown down, that's already been stomped on. Now they start beating it. The reason that they are beating the wheat is because they want to separate the wheat and break it down. They want to break it down to its natural form. So Satan takes your life. He throws you on the ground. He's stomping on you. He has the stick. He's beating on you now. So you got laid off. Johnny's in jail. You have more month than money. But now someone in your family is sick, deathly ill. He brings all these things your way so that he can jack your mind up. See, God allows things to develop us. But then Satan takes those same things so that he can destroy us. But it's okay. It's all right. Because remember, he had to, first of all, get permission from God to even step to you. And when you know God and God knows you and he's looking at you, he already knows who resides in you. So he's not worried about it. He's like, that's my child. I got her back. So Satan says, all right, okay. I threw her on the ground. I stomped on her. I beat her. And now he's getting a little bit fed up with you. Because every time, with everything that he's trying to do with your life, you have the audacity to keep getting back up. He's not happy with you because it's his desire to break you down. It's his desire to hurt you. It's his desire to bring you pain. He's a little bit upset with you right now. So now he's going to pull out all the stops because he's like, look, every time I come at her, she's still faithful. She's still praying to God. She's still going to church. I can't even snatch the song from her spirit. She keeps singing songs of Zion. There's something that I should be able to do that would mess up her life, that would kill her spirit. But every time I try it, she gets back up again. Okay, so he takes you. You've been thrown on the ground. He stomped on you. He beat you. But the next thing that the farmer does with the wheat is he has this large container. It's called a sieve. They take the wheat that's been thrown on the ground, the wheat that's been stomped on, the wheat that's been beat, and they place it in this sieve. And it violently shakes the wheat. Violently. The reason that they're doing that, again, is because they're trying to break the wheat down. Okay, so you lost your job, more month than money, Johnny's in jail, family member is very, very ill, but now your car won't even work. You don't have no transportation. And you can't get around like you want to. You can't even get anywhere to try to put in an application. You trying to get to the loved one to help them out, but you can't get there. Your son is in jail, but you can't even make it to the prison because the car's not working, and you got to save up your money. You don't have money to be buying tokens every day to go visit somebody in jail. He's trying to break you down. So he shakes you up. He shakes up your atmosphere, your environment, so that when you come to church, your environment where you feel safe. Folk have already been talking about you because they heard about what happened, that you got fired. They heard about him going to jail. They heard about the pink slip. They know you don't have any transportation. So he's shaking up the environment where you should feel safe. The safest place should be church. But he's even shaking that up in your life because folk are talking about you. They Facebooking it, they tweeting it, they Twittering it, they doing all that stuff so that when you arrive at the door, folk looking at you cockeyed and crazy. Because they've heard about what they think they know is going on. He's trying to shake you up. He shakes up your family life. He shakes up the church house. He's going to do whatever he can to jack you up by any means necessary. But because of who's in you. Because you know that if you can just hold on to God's unchanging hand, life all around you is changing. Stuff is different than it was 2 and 3 days ago, but God doesn't change. And if you can just hold on just a little while longer, y'all ever been there before? When stuff is just, everything is all combobulated and discombobulated and messed up. Nothing is going like it should. But you keep holding on to the fact that God is God. And you don't worry about it. And even though he's shaking you up, you keep on going. You at least have the strength to put one foot in front of the other. Even though these things have transpired and it's like you're taking 10 steps back, it doesn't stop you from moving forward. Okay, so the farmer takes the wheat, throws it on the ground, stomps on it, they beat it, he shakes it up. And the next thing that he does, if that's not enough, he takes this wheat and he throws it up into the air. David talks about this in Psalms chapter 1, where he talks about how the wind blows the chaff. They throw the wheat up in the air so that the chaff will go with the wind. And all you have left is the wheat. So it's been thrown down, it's been stomped on, it's been beat down. They shook it up, they throw it up into the air, and what goes up must come down. But you don't just fall like a feather. You hit the ground. Because he's still trying to break you down. He's still trying to mess you up. He still wants you to doubt God. He still wants you to turn your back on God. And life gets like that sometimes, doesn't it? It's never just one thing. It's a succession. It's 1 and 2 and 3 or 4 or 5 things. And it's like this perfect storm where everything lines up against you. But it's okay. Because you serve a God that knows what's going on in your life. As a matter of fact, he allowed all of this stuff to happen. And that has to mess with you sometimes. Because you have to ask yourself, our human nature says, well, God, why are you allowing all this stuff to happen to me? Right. You're my daddy. I'm your child. And you see me down here struggling. I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to be faithful. I'm trying to hold on to your unchanging hand. But every time I turn around, Satan is just coming at me. And then even when I go to church where I should feel safe, church folk are talking about me. Even when I go to my job, co-workers are looking at me crazy. And then they give me this pink slip and they tell me that I don't have a job anymore. God, I got bills to pay. I got a rent that's due. I have a family that needs taken care of. How am I supposed to take care of my mom that's not doing well when I can't even get to her because my car won't start? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to pay some bail for my son that got picked up because he's a black man? He wasn't doing nothing.
That's right.
He just got picked up. What am I supposed to do with that, God? Because you said you love me, right? See, Satan wants you to doubt God. And in moments like that, it's easy to ask, why? What's up with that, God? You know me. We cool, right?
Right.
God is sovereign. When my cousin was killed last week, I struggled with that thing, y'all. This is a 5-year-old kid. And I'm like, well, God, what? I don't understand. And I had to sit myself down and realize that this ain't about you. God is sovereign. he does what he does, when he feels like doing what he does, in the manner in which he chooses to do what he does. And when we start to question God, I'm reminded of Job when Job was going through all that stuff and his friends turned their back on him, and Job was like, God, I've been serving you and I've been doing what's right. I'm an upright brother. What's going on right here? My kids are dead. My wife is turned against me. And God said to him, Job, where were you? Where were you? When I laid the foundation of the earth. Who do you think you are to question me? I'm God. I'm sovereign. I do what I want to do. I choose who I want to choose. It could be that God sometimes, and I believe this wholeheartedly, God needs a testimony from somebody that can not only shout hallelujah because I made it over, out, beyond, and through. But sometimes God needs a testimony of somebody that said, yeah, I'm about to lose it. It's some hell going on right now. I am marinating in some mess. Right now. Hell is all up in my face today. I'm in a storm right now. But it's okay. Because when you know the weatherman, you don't worry about the winds blowing and the lightning flashing and the thunder roaring. God needs somebody that can give a testimony to say, yeah, I'm going through hell. Show up. But God is holding me together. He's keeping me right now. And even if the storm doesn't pass, I'm going to stand firm. Because I know God. And God knows me. Okay. I got a little bit happy here. Let me get back to the text. Let me get back to the text. All right, so we at Luke chapter 22, right? Y'all got your Bibles, right? Luke chapter 22, verse 31. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. He's trying to break you down. And you know, when I read this, I asked my friend, what time does worship start? 10. Okay, so I got like 15 minutes. All right. I asked myself, okay, I said, well, God, why Simon? Why didn't you say John? Why not Thomas? Why not one of the other disciples? We talked about this yesterday. Y'all didn't mess me completely up. We talked about the promises of God. And how God was protecting the promise all throughout the Old Testament. Okay, it's even deeper than what we talked about yesterday. All right, because when you get to the New Testament, the promise of the Messiah has been delivered. Christ has been born. He's living, he's walking, he's talking amongst his people. The promise was originally made to the Israelites. Okay? So all throughout the Old Testament, they had been looking for the Messiah because he was promised. The Messiah comes on the scene. They think he's all about kingdom, power, government. No, that's not even why he was here. He's not even about that. But the Messiah comes on the scene. The promise is here now. They don't even realize it. But I said, well, God, why Simon? When you look at Matthew chapter 16, Christ has a conversation with Peter. And he says, Peter, I'm going to give you some keys. And you're going to use these keys on the day of Pentecost. Peter didn't realize that. These keys are used to open something. Now remember, the promise was made originally to the Jewish nation. But on the day of Pentecost, after Christ is crucified and resurrected, Peter still has the keys, but he doesn't know it. When Christ is crucified, Peter denies the Lord. He's sitting at the camp, he cussing and carrying on. I love Peter. I love Peter because Peter was just a thug. You know what I'm saying? He's just a thug. The brothers, he's there in the Garden of Gethsemane. They going at Christ. My brother, pull out a switchblade. Cuss somebody else. I just love Peter. He would just go for it. But he denies the Lord. And when he realizes what he's done, Peter gets depressed. He has guilt. Peter separates himself from the other disciples. When Christ is resurrected, Peter's not there. He's still separated. But Christ says, go get Peter. Go get him. Why? Because Peter still had purpose. Peter still had the keys that were promised to him in Matthew chapter 16. So when you get to Acts chapter, God is so good. When you get to Acts chapter 2, Peter uses the keys that he was given back in Matthew chapter 16 that opened the door. What did it open the door to? Because remember, the promise was originally for the Jewish nation, but when Peter used those keys on the day of Pentecost, that opened the door so that we could be reconciled back to God. What do you mean, Deb? Remember, you are not, I am not a Jew. No. But when Peter used those keys, it opened the door so that folk like us could be reconciled. Gentile folk, you know what I'm saying? Gentiles could be reconciled back to God. Y'all should be thanking God this morning that he called Simon, because Simon Peter still had purpose. So that's why Satan desired to have Peter, to prevent him from using the keys that were given to him in Matthew chapter 16. That when he used them in Acts chapter 2, it would open the door so that we could be black folk, white folk, Oriental folk could be reconciled back to God.
All right, connect.
That's why. You gotta connect the dots. That's why he said, Peter. And you know what? If we stop right there at verse 31, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. If that were the end of the story, we'd all be jacked up. But then get to verse 32. But that's a conjunction. He starts verse 32 with a conjunction, which means that the words that were before the conjunction are looking pretty dim. But because there's a but, there's a conjunction. That means that the words that follow the conjunction have a completely different meaning than the words that were before the conjunction. It flips the script. Verse 31 is a sad condition. Satan is after you. He's put a bullseye on you. You are his target. But I have prayed for thee. Okay. I appreciate the prayers of the righteous. I do. There's nothing like the power of prayer. Nothing like it. But this verse right here, y'all, it messes me up because, first of all, because someone is praying for me, and I appreciate that. But look at who's doing the talking. This is the Savior. He's saying, but I, Jesus, the Son of God. I appreciate y'all prayers for real, but it's a completely different thing when the Son of God gets down on his knees for me. When he goes to his Father, who's also my Father, for me. And he's the only somebody that can do that because he knows what's going to happen next week. He knows what's going to happen next year. He knows what's waiting for me around the corner. So he's saying, Dad, you don't know about it, but I know about it. So before you meet it and it meets you, I'm going to God for you. He prayed.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
Christ is praying for you. Right now.
Awesome.
He's praying for you. He gets down. He lowers himself. Gets down on his knees on your behalf. That's why he's the creator. Because see, he lived down here. He walked down here. He talked down here. So he's the only one, y'all, that can go to God and tell God how I feel about what I'm dealing with. God, she's in grief today. I know what that's like. That's what Christ says. I know what that's like because Lazarus died. That was my friend. I know what it feels like to lose a loved one. So when he goes to pray for you, he's telling God how you feel. Okay. Maybe it's not that. God, she was backstabbed today. I know what that feels like. Judas did the same thing to me. So when you have to deal with that kind of pain, the Savior prays for you to God, and he knows what it's like to be betrayed and backstabbed. He goes to God. God, they talking about it. They don't know the real deal. They just come into these judgmental conclusions based on what they think they know. He understands. Because when he came to his people, they didn't even really see him for who he was. They thought he was the enemy. They had all kinds of crazy. As long as they were getting what they wanted from him, they were cool. But when he was talking about, look, you need to turn the other cheek and all that, nobody want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? That's when they're like, oh, okay, well, we want the 5 loaves and we want the fish sandwiches. And we want you to give us what we need, but we ain't about turning no cheeks. He's the only one that can go to the Father and tell him what you're going through. Okay, so he says, but I have prayed. I have prayed for you. What are you praying, Christ? Don't worry about this. That thy faith fail not. I'm praying that you will remember. He's talking to Peter, but he's also talking to us. He's telling Peter, I'm praying that the things that I've taught you in these 3 years that he was with him, that you remember it. That you don't doubt me. Because there are going to be some times, see, this was before Peter denied the Lord. He said, Peter, I know this time tomorrow, you're going to deny me. Peter, I know that in a few days, they're going to be persecuting y'all. I know what's coming down the line, Peter. Peter, as a matter of fact, Peter was the disciple that was crucified upside down. He said, Peter, I know what you're going to have to deal with. But regardless of what happens, I need you to hold on to what you know of me. I need you to hold on to what you know about me, what I have taught you. I'm praying that your faith fail not. Don't doubt me. And he says, and when thou art converted, when you for real,